Hey, it's Ed. Today I'd like to talk about Prism MIDI Sequencer. It's available on the App Store for iPhone and iPad. I've been using it for quite a while, and it just keeps getting better and better, and I like it more and more. And I'd like to talk to you about what makes it great and what I like about it. So basically, it's a MIDI sequencer with multiple tracks, got up to 16 tracks, as you can see here, that you can control. And it works in the major DAWs for iPad and AUM, things like that. It's a very hardware-oriented kind of design. And if you're into that kind of thing, then absolutely, this is something worth considering or at least looking into. If you're not into hardware, but you can deal with the hardware sort of mindset where, one screen can do multiple things, then that also might be for you. But I think it might also be for a lot of people that just want to be able to create something simple, manipulate it, and take it new places very easily. This app also has that feature. So I think it has a wide variety of use cases if you approach it correctly. And that's what I'd like to cover today, is how to think about this app and how to understand how it's laid out and how to get into it and do some things. I'm not going to go deep. I'm just going to go scratch the surface. But believe me, just scratching the surface on this thing can take you very, very far. So let me do a quick demo just for a few seconds here to give you a general idea of something you can create very easily, because this little piece here was very quick. It's very much a hardware framework that you're dealing with here, where you have limited real estate and you got to make that real estate do as much as possible. So you're going to have multiple functions performed by the same things. Like here, if I just click around, it'll give you an idea. Here's a page with some pads on the right here, very MPC-like layout, right? Now, if I click this, I get different options. If I click this button, these pads change into something else. If I click this one, it's something else. If I click here, it's something else again. Now, I'm going to go into some of this in a bit, but I want to just give you the feel of it. Now, if I click on the left side over here, I got, a piano roll. If I click here, I got something else. This is MIDI. This is FX, which transformed the sequence playback. There's a song mode with all sorts of stuff inside of there. If I click down here, and you'll notice that these menus change depending where I'm at down here, right? If I click on here, if I click on here, if I click on here, this part changes, right, down here. So all sorts of things change depending on what you click. I think that might be part of the difficulty of adjusting to it. But once you understand the concepts behind it and you can sort of break out what is where, I think it's going to get a lot easier. Here's where we'd create chords and enter chords into our trigs. These can be triggered either by tapping on the screen or an external device of some sort. And you can see here some different types of chords that you can create. If I click on chord sus, for example, it's going to create a sus chord. I'm not going to go into that here, but what I want to point out is that each of these buttons here is going to have multiple functions. So let's go on to the next one right here. Now, this is sequence transformations. You can see it gives you a little clue here on the right of the pane. There's a lot of things that will show up over here to give you clues about what's going on and what this panel is doing. You'll also get some messages over here in this area right here where right now it says track 3-2. This is going to flash up little messages when you click on different things that can also give you clues. That's a little side note for you there. Now, I'm not going to dive deep into any of these. I'm just going to quickly give you an overview of how these panels generally work on the right and left and a couple other areas. So let's keep going. Now, there's a bunch of stuff in here, as you can see. I'm going to skip over that. And here, this is the looper. And as you can see on the right here, it gives you sequence every, this is a little description there. And let's say I'm not quite sure. Let's take another side detour here, right? Let's say I'm not sure what this panel is and what it's doing, right? Here's my loops. Again, 2 buttons, the little dots indicate there's 2 views from this particular button right here on this panel, right? And over here it tells me it's a looper. But let's say I want to get more information, right? And there is some help for this. Let me long click. I short clicked on that. Let me try it correctly here. Long click and hold on that. This little I here is help. You can see that little message flashed up there. It said help on. Now, if I click anywhere outside of here, just to close that, and I click on this, for example, here, you can see it's giving me some help on what that item is. And I clicked on the button here, the pattern scene keypad. So there's some help for a lot of these things, not for everything, but for quite a number of things. You can use that help. I'm going to long press here again and turn that off and click outside and go back to where we were before, the looper, right? That little detour. Let's go to the top one here. Now, again, you can see there's 2 dots on this one. They only show up when you click on it. So that's going to tell you that there's multiple pages to be accessed. And again, here, I've got patterns, sounds, mutes, scenes. And I think these are fairly self-explanatory for people that are familiar with scenes and patterns like that. Now, the sounds relates to CC controls, which I'll get to in a little bit. I'm just going to touch on those. And mutes, of course, mute groups and things like that. Now, if I click again, I can actually see my scenes on the right. Here are my scene numbers, A1, A2, A3, pattern 1, 2, 3. And here it gives you a little info. Scene here, and this section down here is patterns. So you've got a top section and a lower section, right, on the same 16 pads. So if you understand the way this works, it should be pretty clear, right? Now, let's shift gears over to this section. I think that makes logical sense. Obviously, we have a sequencer here, which controls, we can feed in the notes over here into our sequencer. You can see the notes here. These are triggers in this section here. I'm going to gloss over all the sequence-related stuff and just talk a little bit about what these sections here do on the left, because this is kind of, you would start here, and then once you've got a sequence, then you would start probably working over here to do some other things to transform that sequence. So here you're going to see that this is a little visual that tells you about the length of the particular trig you have selected. Up here you can see velocity, length, chance, that's like a conditional for steps. You can change that. I'm not going to go into it, but you can do all sorts of things. If you have a trig selected or multiple trigs selected right here and you click on sequence, you can change all these values and do all sorts of fun things. I'm going to gloss over that. Let's go to the CC next. This is where you can do MIDI CC control, and this is available for each track. So 16 tracks, the CCs can control every single destination that you're using per track. If I click on this little folder here, you can see there's some built-in CC profiles that are available. I'm not going to go into that. And then there's these little icons here related to LFOs. I've got all the IAPs, so you may see some things that are locked for you but are unlocked for me. These are LFOs that you can use to control the CC values. And this is super, super deep. I'm not going to go into it here, but you can see here, these are sort of default values. There's a little area here where you can use, to sort of move things around in a little grid, an XY grid. It's really, really amazing. Let's jump to the next. Now, this again, just like on the right panel here, everything that you do is going to have probably multiple levels below it. This is no exception. In this case, these FX encompasses several different features, each with features below them, right? So what I've got right now is harmony selected. So if I select harm, that's going to take me into the harmony page. And again, you can see on the left that FX changed to HRM for harmony. And now I've got all sorts of things I can do here that I can apply that will take effect to the trigs and sequences that are playing in this particular track. And I'm not going to go into it here again. Here you can see if I click on the right, I've got patterns, sequences, things like that. If I click over here, however, if I click over here and I click over here, you can see I can tap on this and I can start entering things in. It's going to start adding harmony parts to this. So let's just get rid of those. Let me long click that to get rid of that and leave it where it's at. I'm going to click harm on the left again to go back to the top level. Here's ARP. I think most people are familiar with ARP and what ARP sort of things can do. This is very, very deep again. There's different styles. You can change the shift amounts. You can change the rate. You can choke. You can humanize. You can change the intervals that it shifts the arps. It's very, very deep. Let me turn that off. I'm going to long press to turn that off. I'm going to long press to turn off the harmony because I don't want to mess things up for the demo later. Hue is where you can control things on your tracks. You can shift things up and down on your tracks. Again, I'm not going to go into that here, but these are global settings. Speed, you can control the speed of this particular track. You can make it speed up, slow down. Warp, you can do all sorts of crazy things with, if you have a chord, you can pull out certain notes. You can step them up, step them down. You can do random tones. You could change the range. You could change which notes are extracted from the chord, one or many, things like that. Gate, this is an interesting feature. You can limit what things are going to pass through by velocity, by pitch, for this particular track. Very interesting feature. If I press, again, this is so deep, I don't want to get carried away, but let's click on song key here. Here you can see all sorts of different keys you can choose from for either starting from or modifying within this entire project. It's a project level setting. It's going to affect all tracks. So let me go back again. So suffice it to say, the FX is very deep. And I wanted to give you a flavor of what's in there, but not go too far. Here's song mode up at the top. And this is where you would take various patterns and scenes from all the tracks that you have here and combine them together. You can create scenes, create mute groups. Let me click here again on this right panel. See the two dots? You can change the view. Over here, we got pattern, sounds, mutes, and scenes. You can see my patterns here. If I click again, now I've just got scenes and mute groups down below. Here it tells you got scene above, mute group below. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into this. There's a section called song transformations. Here I can shift the actual song steps. So again, you can see how this left panel and this right panel sort of combine to work together to do all sorts of things with very, very little screen space, right? It's very hardware oriented. So hopefully that makes sense. So let's break out of this and go into the next section. All right, let's take a look at an example here, a demo. We're going to use the melt function, which is all over this project here. I got 5 tracks. I've got melt on this drum sequence here. I've got melt on this track here. You can see it right there. I got melt. This is not melted here. This is, or at least not doing the melt. This is providing the melodic information. And this one's got melt. This one's got melt. And if you notice to the right here, right, instead of notes, whereas earlier you would see notes here and chords or notes over here, you see these note numbers and intervals on the right. And that's where the melt is manipulating the melodic information coming from this track here. Same thing here on Pure Acid. I've got some steps in here, right? But not notes. And this again is going to deal with the melodic information. Here's our melodic source. So the melt is taking the melodic information from here and putting it into these other tracks. And it's taking the rhythm information from here. And if we click on here, see there's 3 icons. I've got this one in use. Right, it's going to look a little different. But if I click on this, you'll see I've got a melt. It's telling me like take information from this source, like perhaps this source here, track number 3, right, where melodic information is at. Or I could use track number 4, either way, and play it on some other tracks. I can send it out to track 3 and 4. It's going to use that rhythmic information right here. In this track number, or pad number 1, I should say, right? Because this is a drum track. I can have another melt on pad 3 and 8, so on and so forth. Let's just play it. And you'll notice if you watch the flashing on this one, you'll detect that there's some things happening in that rhythm. I can add some more rhythm too. Right? So I'm changing my rhythm and I'm affecting all these other tracks that have the melt engaged, at least the ones that I've got engaged with this melt activity and that are linked together. It's very deep, but you can do a whole lot with very little. So now that we've got that, right, now let's play with it a little bit. Let's go over here and I'll show you what you can do with some of these effects. So I'm going to apply the effects here because track number 3, right now, if you look here, if you look at track number 2, I've got numbers over here, right? If I look at the sequencer, and I got note 1, 2, 3, 4, octave, but there's no note names in this track, right? If I go over here to pure acid, again, no note names, just rhythmic information, basically, and then you can adjust your melodic steps up and down. Basically, you can manipulate the tones up or down. But this is the source, track 3, right? If I change this to E, now it completely changed, and it changed not just track 3, but these other tracks that are feeding from it. So that's the beauty of Melt and the beauty of this tool and the power of this application. So let's go over to FX, where we're going to take this melodic information that's already interacting with these other tracks. We're going to spice it up. Here we just added some additional harmony here. If you hear that. Now I'm going to turn on an ARP. Let's add one more step maybe, right there. And let's bump that style up a little. Let's do this, let's do random. So now I've got an ARP going. I can manipulate this ARP, I can go in here, I can change settings for the ARP. I mean, it's endless. I could go in here in the song key. Here's another area where you can change things, right? So I can change the scale. Or mode, I should say. And it's going to adjust the notes to play along with that scale and select out the notes that are within that scale. There's some options you can choose to change how it behaves, but I mean, it's crazy what you can do. So with just a few clicks, you can take just, some melodic information here, a couple chords, and take these tracks and just go crazy with them in all sorts of ways. And that's what I'd like to emphasize. This app is incredibly easy to use, but also incredibly deep. So you can take it either way. So there you go. Thanks for watching.